Hello everyone and welcome back to Tech 5 Production. How many of you wanted to dive into the world of PC building, but there's just so many choices of components to choose from? Why not we share a bit of our knowledge on the motherboard side and tell you the pros and cons of each motherboard's form factor, ranging from the most common ATX to the smallest ITX boards. Let's start with the most common motherboard size, and that is the ATX motherboard. The pros of ATX motherboard is that because they are the most common size, they also have the most diverse selection of boards, from the most entry-level budget options to the highest end best options. You usually find it at this size. Because of their size too, ATX boards are normally the one with the most upgradability, by usually having the most RAM slot, NVMe slot, and also having the most headers, things such as RGB, ARGB, and fan headers. Besides those, ATX boards will also have the most PCIe slots out of all the form factors, allowing you to add features that your board originally didn't come with, such as Wi-Fi or more USB ports by using the PCIe slots. The cons of an ATX board, however, will also be related to its size. With ATX board's bigger size, for people who want to opt for a smaller casing, even such as a mini tower, which is a mATX, then it won't really be able to fit into the casing. And the other con of ATX form factor will be, because of its diverse selection, the price range of ATX board will have the biggest difference. And if you are new to the custom PC building hobby, then choosing the right board for you may not be that easy in the ATX form factor, just because of the diverse choice you have. Next up, let's talk about a form factor that's one level down from an ATX form factor, and that's the mATX. The first pros of this form factor is usually its pricing, where mATX board will usually have the most budget-friendly option chipset, such as AMD's A series of board and Intel's H series of boards. The next pros of mATX is, despite its smaller size, most of them, especially starting from the mid-end to the higher-end mATX board, will have the same features and upgradability of a full-size ATX board, with most mid-end to high-end mATX boards having more than one full lane of PCIe lane, 4 RAM slot, and also having around 2 NVMe slots, and a decent number of RGB, ARGB, and fan headers, although usually will be less than the ATX counterpart. And of course, the smaller size will allow for you to place it in an ATX or mATX casing, as a smaller board will be able to fit into a bigger case, but not vice versa. Now, with all those pros, what's the cons of an mATX board? Well, the biggest con I think faced by mATX board is that they're usually the often neglected form factor. This means that the selection of boards won't be as wide as the ATX counterpart, and it's very hard to find an exact model that you want in the mATX size. For example, you might want a wide high-end mATX board, or an mATX board with a front and back USB Type-C headers or I/O, but it'll be hard to find it in an mATX size. Another downside of mATX board is the distance between the expansion slots of PCIe. As I said in its pro, the pro of mATX is its upgradability isn't too far behind a full-size ATX board. But this may not apply for PCIe expandability. You could face some issues due to the physical size of the mATX board, where if you plug in a big GPU on your primary slot, there may be a chance you won't be able to take advantage of the PCIe slot below it, especially if the main PCIe slot is at the second row instead of the first row. Then it might block the last PCIe slot. And of course, although you are able to place an mATX board into an ATX case, the build itself will just look slightly emptier, just because of the shorter length of an mATX board, thus causing it not to look as complete as compared if you use an ATX board in an ATX build. And finally, let's talk about the ITX boards and what's the pros and cons of them. Let's talk about its pros first, with the biggest or rather in this case, smallest with its size. ITX boards are the smallest boards available for the DIY custom PC building space, and as such allows for the tiniest of PC builds that are usually portable and look very different from a usual tower build. Also, due to its small size and limited expandability, motherboard makers of ITX boards will normally fit in as many features that people need as possible, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and Bluetooth. Just because they know that expandability via PCIe will be hard or maybe impossible on an ITX board, and although ITX choices for ITX are also quite limited like mATX, their variants are usually more towards the higher end and quality, and so their build qualities are generally quite solid too. Now to the cons of ITX boards, and the main one will of course come from its small size, and that makes it to have limited expandability and upgradability. While some boards may have 2 NVMe slots, all of the mainstream ITX boards will only have 2 RAM slots, and they also have less USB ports, ARGB, RGB, and fan headers in general. In terms of expandability with PCIe, it won't really be possible too, as ITX boards will usually only have 1 PCIe slot, and that's normally used for the main graphic card. And of course, not forgetting another big con of an ITX board is their pricing. Despite being the smallest in size, having the least upgradability, and having the least amount of I/O, they are usually priced higher than most mid-range ATX or mATX boards. But if you're looking for a small PC build, your choice usually only comes down to ITX. And those are the pros and cons of each form factor of motherboards. Which one is the right fit for you? And which one is your favorite size? Do tell us in the comments below. And if you find this video to be helpful, be sure to share it to all your friends and family, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!